I'm a bad mode, gotta keep it tight. Hold my baby squid, keep them out of sight. Talking about my life, government, stay away. If you drive, I'ma do it my own way. Squid in the ocean, swimming all alone. Ain't nobody telling me where to go. Living free, gotta stay true to myself. No need for interference from anyone else. Squid pro quo, that's the way to be. Living on my terms, setting myself free. Mama to my baby, protecting with my no government intrusion. I control my life.
Hey guys, this is attempt number 2 at this stream. Chat rules, I have them pinned. I don't give a fuck what your opinion is. Don't care. This is not the time or the place. I am not judging anybody with this stream. This stream is supposed to be informative. If I didn't despise recording a video, I would tell everybody to go F themselves and I would just record it and post it. This is not a judgment of either side. This is not attacking either side. This is not sticking up for either side. This is strictly as a person with a healthcare background and a neurological disorder. This is an informative stream so that before you open your mouth and say something, you know what the fuck you're talking about. Some people couldn't respect that. And if you can't respect it, this is not the stream for you. And you can leave and watch it on replay crew. I asked multiple times not to bring up what you thought of either side. This is a discussion on a healthcare condition, not a living condition, not an assumption of what you think someone might be going through. We don't have access to her medical records. We will never get access to her medical records. And that's okay. But to talk about somebody, especially a child, when you have no idea what that child is dealing with on a daily basis, and I'm not saying what her guardians are dealing with, I am saying what she is dealing with, because at the end of the day, this is all about her. If you get one chance to be warned, and if you keep doing it, I will boot you myself. I don't have the time, and now this is going to be a super short stream because I don't have the time for this. I have shit to do. I have to work tonight. I don't have the time for this. So we are going to get into it. We are going to get into what it is. We are going to get into who it can affect, how it's found, it pertains to the child in question in the online drama that is What the Hales. Regardless of what you think of either side, this is not about them. This is about her. So we're going to get this started yet again. And I'm pretty much going to ignore chat because. So I am going to share. Let's see. And listen this time. Use your ears, not your mouth. Glutaric Aciduria Type I is an inherited disorder which the body is unable to process certain proteins properly, mainly lysine and tryptophan. Tryptophan is the main in turkey, and hydroxylysine. So excessive levels of these amino acids or intermediate breakdown products can accumulate and cause damage to the brain, particularly basal ganglia, which helps control movement. Intellectual disabilities may also occur. The severity of glutaric acidemia type 1 varies widely. Some individuals are only mildly affected, while others have severe problems. In most cases, signs and symptoms appear in early childhood, but a small number of affected individuals can get it developed in early adolescence or even adulthood. Some babies with glutaric acidemia are born with macrocephaly, which is a large head. So you can see it in those pictures. You can see it in the pictures of people. You can see it like this little girl right here. Her head seems abnormally large for the size of her body. So part of this is what we don't know exactly what is going on. We don't know exactly what the extent of this is, if it's a mild or if it's a high. However, this is the video from Duke Health that shows the range of this condition in one family.
More sugars. Oh no, no more sugars. Oh my goodness.
People ask me every day how do I do it. I say I take one day at a time. And I don't take nothing for granted.
So this woman, 2 children, 1 male, 1 female, both with the same disorder. So
Where I had her was in Laurinburg.
So you can
and,
see the abnormally large
and it come back.
abnormally large head in this picture right here. In all of them, but her baby picture mainly.
Stating that something was wrong. My mind was like racing, like, what's wrong with my child? You know, I never heard of nothing, you know, going wrong with a child with their feeding. It's just like, why me? Like, what did I do wrong, you know, for this to happen to my child?
So this is her daughter.
Can you go down? No? Okay.
And she has such high tone in that arm that her arm literally won't go down. These muscles right here are so tight that she can't put her arm down. You see every time she pushes it down, it comes back up because these muscles are so tight.
When she was 10 months old, well, she started having seizures that build up to the glutaric stroke. It caused right side weakness, and she has problems with using her right side. It's why it stays up all the time. And then when we had her, they told me it was like a 25% chance every time I got pregnant, it would happen. So since, you know, we already had one, you know, this one will be the same. You know, we thought it was going to be easier. Was I hit with a hard ball?
So treatments for this condition include a strict low protein diet, have had limited success. So it really doesn't seem to, even though it's a problem digesting proteins, a low protein diet doesn't seem to make it better. Odd, but it's a brain condition. So depending on where it affects the brain, it can have completely different, you know, it could build up back here. It could build up in your frontal lobe. It could be different depending on the day, or so extensive neurological damage.
He ended up having a seizure when he was 14 months old, and it set him way back. So he never got the experience of crawling, turning over, nothing. And, you know, it was easier to work with her, but him's a whole different story. But he loved his attention. And he always had a smile on his face. Never a frown. Unless he didn't feel good, but he still tried to hold a smile.
So, as you can see, this child died. So it really didn't seem to matter what she did. Her child still passed away. She had 2 children with the same condition. One had a stroke and one passed away. So sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. and what you don't do, or how good of medical care you get or don't get. Sometimes it's just bad. Yes, every parent's nightmare. Oh my God, every parent's nightmare. And then there's this other video, and this one I might have to restart. See, YouTube did their funny thing again, where they don't like to start from the beginning of the video because I already watched it. So we are going to show another video that is, take that one with a grain of salt, because it is, like I said, by a medical nutrient company, and can cause different issues. Oh, come on. And it's, YouTube is still doing their thing. And I should have played that one first, but the Duke University one was impactful because it's in the same family. Yeah, it's genetic. It is, both parents have to have the gene. And it is normally discovered when you do, everybody who's had a child knows that your child, your newborns heal. They take a blood sample. And it sucks to watch your child have to it sucks to watch your child have to get blood squeezed out of their heel the first time the first, moments of their life. You hear them scream for not a good reason. You hear them scream in pain. And it sucks. Baby Squid, because she was tiny, had to do it twice. So I had to take her to the lab at the local hospital and get it done again. So I not only had to deal with that when she was a newborn, but when she was a week and a half old, we had to go back and get it done again. So I had to watch this woman squeeze the hell out of her foot trying to get enough blood for the sample, and it just, everything was good, but like, we had to get it done because technically she was an ounce underweight. So this is another child who's living with this condition. This is from a medical nutrient company, so take it with a grain of salt. They found a girl who's doing well and takes their supplement. So, you can take that with what it's like a pharmacy commercial or pharmaceutical commercial. You take it for what
My favorite food is vegetables. And I know you might not like this, and I know it's all about fruits and vegetables, but I also like noodles.
Both my husband and I had the genetic mutation, and we passed that on to our daughter. She will have to be protein restricted on a low-pro diet for the rest of her life. I don't think that her having GA-1 has really had much impact on her being able to eat out and to go to parties or different gatherings. There's a lot of foods that she cannot eat. She takes her formula with her, and we prepare it every night, and so it's ready to go in the mornings when we leave the house. She drinks it wherever we are.
So she has a supplement that she takes. And once again, not all of this supplement may not be covered by insurance, Medicaid. Medicaid covers a lot, but they also don't cover a lot. And they don't like to cover experimental things. So just because someone has insurance doesn't always mean they have the means to get everything they need. Once again, not here to judge any one side. But when you hear that a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old at the time is not potty trained, and instead of laughing at it, did you ever bother to ask yourself why? It might not be. It may be pure laziness, but it also might not be. Because we've seen that one girl had a stroke. Strokes can affect your bowel and bladder. If she has it where and I don't know this girl, never met her. I've never even seen a picture of her. I know that there is some posted. I did not look because that is just not my type of personality. But because I've been dragged into this, I want to educate people on both sides to not judge what you don't know. Especially from someone who has a medical condition, who one day I'm fine and the next day, like, I can't feel my feet. Like, I was running yesterday, my legs hurt all the way up my back. Like, nothing I can do about it because it's nerve pain. So it's not real. It's not real in the sense of like I tore a muscle or my shoes don't fit. It's real in the sense of it hurts like hell, but there's nothing actually wrong with me besides my brain being overactive and saying there's something wrong, when there's really nothing wrong. So I take this personally because this affects me every day. This affects people with chronic pain every day. So when I see a child being used as a pawn on both sides, when I see it being used as you're making fun of the parent or the guardians because this child is not, that is not, in my opinion, ever right to do. We are all taking this situation way too personally, but like that little girl is going to hopefully grow up and she's going to see all the shit that's been said about her, whether it be right or wrong, and it's going to affect her cognitively, emotionally. And as we know, our emotions can affect, there are studies that show negative emotions can affect your pain levels. So there's a reason that, like, when you get upset, people are like, oh, this is giving me a migraine, is because emotional stress is a trigger for certain conditions. So she's going to see all this because the internet never goes away. And I just want to make sure that before someone on either side opens their mouth and says something, you know who it's affecting. You say it to affect one side and to hurt people's feelings, but really the only person you're affecting is that child. And if you were a parent doing your best, how would you feel about that? Because I know what I would do. Oh, y'all are shit. So just think about shit before you say it, or before you type it, because at the end of the day, that doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect Jeremy. It doesn't even really affect Lynette. It affects that little girl. So, you know. Oh, Tim, you have no idea. Hey, welcome to the chat. This is our second attempt at this because the first one got hijacked by people who shouldn't have been here to start with. So here is this back again. And this is from Medline. This is from Medline. This is very easy to understand. It's a government website. So take that with a grain of salt because I know some of us don't 100% trust the government. However, you know, here's the kicker that I want everybody to understand. Affected individuals may have some difficulty moving, may experience spasms, jerking, rigidity. Rigidity is that you can't move, or decreased muscle tone. You can't move because you have no muscles. Some individuals with glutaric acidemia might have developed bleeding in the brain or eyes that could be mistaken for the effects of child abuse. And where have we seen that before? This is Florida. Remember, Maya was in Florida. Maya was around Tampa, Sarasota area. So this is not unbelievably far from where someone was accused of abusing their child when it was a medical condition. So before you throw around things like CA and decide to call people, mainly CPS, think about the effects things that you don't know about that this child is going through that might be her condition. Hey, Jamie. We are talking about glutaric aciduria type 1. And Jeannie, you of anybody know, we are the chronic pain people who are going through things that other people can't see. The child in question, I am not mentioning her name because she is being used as a pawn on both sides. I feel like she's being used as a grift. And I just can't. You know me, Jeannie. You know me in real life. Jeannie used to be my my supervisor. Well, not my supervisor, but my my OT, supervising OT, who would co-sign my notes. She also, and Jeannie, I'm just gonna give a little thing, deals with chronic pain that people don't understand. So it's one of those things of like, we take this personally because this is our daily lives. And when people look at you and go, you're fine. So like hell I am. If you only knew. Yes, chronic pain warriors. So this little girl, and I am all about, yes, people who actually see abuse should call. Other than that, if you don't know, CPS runs rampant with overreaches, but they also mess up. But we have to assume that if someone was called, that they did their due diligence, and you have to let it go. Because what you think, it's almost like that when we have ethics concerns with lawyers, yeah, all babies are checked. They get a newborn screening, and the metabolic panel is part of that newborn screening, at least everywhere I've been. Standard procedure. So on what was I saying? I just lost my train of thought. It's kind of one of those situations of our personal ethics and certain attorneys who will remain nameless. If they show up, they show up. If they don't, fine. What we might think is unethical with our own ethical and moral codes may not be legally by their bar standards. And I actually went into this in David Gingras. I made a video, I want to say like June 15th, about David Gingras and him calling the cops while at the courthouse on a potential witness who was subpoenaed. So what we think is our own personal and moral and ethical code may not be unethical according to the law. So what we wouldn't do as parents may not be, like, I don't like to yell at her, but yelling at her is not immoral. It's not illegal if I yell at her. I'm her mom. It's my job to keep her safe. And sometimes if I need to yell at her in order to keep her out of a situation, like, I don't know, when I'm opening the oven to take dinner out, she's sprinting towards me, you know. So what is interpreted as child neglect, or, you know, the A word, it might not be. And because of this condition might, like it literally says on a government website, some individuals with glutaric aciduria have developed bleeding in the brain or eyes that could be mistaken for the effects of child abuse. Strict dietary control may help limit progression of neurological damage, but stress caused by infections, fever, or other demands on the body may lead to worsening of the signs and symptoms with only a partial recovery. So, it's like MS. You have progressive MS. You're at a level here, you have a flare, and then you go down and you only come back to like here. And then you have another flare and you only come back to here. And over time, it gets progressively worse. So I don't agree with, even though my personal opinion is different than some of yours, it might not be. So stress caused by infection, fever, or other demands. If you're around other people and who are sick and they get a fever, you have a fever, that might affect us 3 or 4 days, we're fine. It might affect someone else's neurological condition or physical condition and affect them much worse. So even though they can be around people, it doesn't mean that it's always a good idea, or some people might be overly cautious. You know, we have those people who wear masks in their car by themselves. My opinion, slightly overly cautious, but if they feel like it's what they need to do to keep themselves safe, by all means. Does it affect us? No. So I understand the people who are, in a sense, upset about that. But remember, not your place to judge when you don't have access to that child's medical records. So it's one of those, like, see, and this is another thing where just because someone gives someone a smack on the butt or a smack on the hand does not reach the level of child, you know. So there is that whole, she turned on the treadmill and she's taking her toys and putting them on the treadmill and watching them fall off. Can you so yeah, if you're immunocompromised, you got to be careful. I wore an N95 back in 2014 when I was in chemo, had to. And you know what? And that's why, even though sometimes I look at people and I'm like, I think it's silly that you're wearing a mask in your car by yourself. Sometimes people have things that are going on that we don't know about and you can't see from the outside. So you can't see someone's immunocompromised status just by looking at them. Sometimes you can when, you know, you're in chemo, like long-term chemo, and you lose your hair, you lose weight, things like that. But like, I got to go do mommy duties. Someone is dragging me by the finger and I'm about to fall out of this chair. Yes. Again, this is a learning experience, not only an Otter Creek situation. That is the only person that I personally know of, but that is not the only person. 1 in 100,000 children are born with this. Yeah. Yes, I have fibromyalgia. I apparently am hypermobile. So sometimes I get pain when I'm not trying. Oh, I guess she don't want me no more. She found her pad. No, it's just an N95. And there's things about masks too, but that's a rabbit hole that I could go into. Like N95 versus a regular surgical mask, like, you know, it's the whole. So getting to a different, this 38-minute reading material that we are not going to get into. Hey, Sandra. Yeah. And there are some people, like, they might be able to walk, but they can't walk for long distances. So you might need to use the motorized scooter in the grocery store, but yet you can get up and stand up and reach your stuff. People look at you like you're crazy because you're using it and you're taking it away from someone who needs it. But at the same time, 5 feet down the way, if you walk more, you can't like you can't walk anymore, or you get so winded. So it's like you might be able to stand up and get something. Don't judge people based on one instance, because you don't know what they have going on behind the scenes that they're not telling you. And a lot of people with chronic pain hide it and fake it because they don't want to be judged. So because there's still that stigma. Yeah, the only time Nanny, the one time when I really judged somebody, and you can think of me what you want for this, back in March of 2020, back when I first started driving again after my surgery, when they were riding their motorcycle with a mask on but weren't wearing a helmet. I'm gonna make fun of you every time for that, because you're not wearing a helmet or any leather or riding boots or motorcycle boots or anything like that, but you're wearing a mask. That to me is just hilarious, and I will make fun of somebody every time for that. Like, yeah. I got a 16 plus and I like it, or pro. It's good, honey. You know I can't stand you and I judge you constantly. That's why I'm here. I love you too, Uncle Buck. Like, so this is from NIH. This is a 38-minute read, and we are not reading all of it. But this. So symptomatic individuals, if you're not found with it on newborn screening, following supportive clinical neuroimaging and lab findings, progressive macrocephaly, which is the enlarged head, observed in 75% of affected individuals. But macrocephaly has many etiologies. Brain MRI and characteristic of GA-1 would typically be an indication to consider a diagnosis. So untreated infantile onset of GA-1, resulting from either false negatives, NBS not performed, or non-compliant caregivers, typically manifests as acute encephalopathic crisis, blah, 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 hypotonia, loss of motor skills, feeding difficulty, which feeding difficulty may be where the feeding tube comes from. So before we judge that, and this is not me sticking up for her. This is me being non-biased and strictly medical, and using clinical findings and clinical indications to address a topic, and not my personal biases or attitude. Also, FYI, just because I don't like somebody doesn't mean that everything they do is wrong, and just because I like somebody doesn't mean everything they do is right. I am being objective, and if either side doesn't like that, so be it. Feel free to put your opinions on what I've said in the comments below, but keep it to what I've said and not what your bias was going into this. So, sometimes seizures. So the feeding difficulty might be where I've heard a feeding tube, I've heard a medication tube, a medication port. I don't know. I am not there. All I do know is from working in a hospital for 6 years, doctors do not put feeding tubes in lightly. Even in grown-ass adults that need it, they usually try to go with everything else, speech therapy, find other alternatives, TPN, before they put in a feeding tube. So yes, Tammy, I believe it or not, I am 90% service connected, VA disabled, and my arms and my legs both move perfectly fine most days. But and strokes can affect swallowing. Neurological deficits can be there are people with my condition that have swallowing difficulties. And it's not that they It's just the part of the brain that is affected and compressed affects swallowing. So when this builds up, when this acid builds up in the brain, it doesn't discriminate on where it builds up. It does have more often than not. So brain MRI findings, they studied 18 Dutch individuals, 11 months to 33 years old with GA-1. Open some words I get. Latin was not my thing. Widening of CSF spaces, ventricular megaly, attenuated signal from basal ganglia, white matter abnormalities, and subdural hemorrhage, which is the stroke. Probably due to stretching of bridging veins in a large extra-axial fluid spaces. And then you get lab findings too. So I appreciate that. Please leave your DNA on the up button. If you leave your DNA on the down thumb, that'll work too. Because I know this stream is not for everybody, and people have very, very strong opinions on this. And quite frankly, I really didn't want to talk about this because I really don't want to talk about the child. I really don't. But at a certain point, both sides pissed me off with what they were saying. And some things might be Lynette's fault and other things might not be. And because we don't have access to her medical records and never will, hopefully, we do not know. So to judge someone based on a situation that we don't know is very wrong. In my opinion, whether I am Lynette's best friend or I can't stand her or any of the situation, regardless of how I feel personally about that situation, some of the things going on might be the fact that this little girl has this condition. And if you're scared of it too, and you're scared of making it worse, think 2020, back when we didn't know much about the coof, and people freaked out and we overdid things because we didn't know, or we didn't have the appropriate testing, or we didn't have the knowledge, the money. Like some of these tests and some of these treatments are freaking expensive. And you might have the best of intentions, but just because you have the best of intentions doesn't always. I had the best of intentions with the first stream, and that got derailed. So this is genetic testing. It's very scientific. I'm not getting into it because we all know that chemistry was not my favorite. But we are, and I only passed college chemistry because of the curve. But there is treatments, and the widely different manifestations of this disorder is what we need to focus on. Just because one person with this disorder might be functioning fine and can lead a relatively normal life with diet changes, another one might not be able to. And if we don't know what that person is dealing with, or what that family is dealing with, then we need to reserve our judgment until we're given more information. I love learning this. I love reading about this. High school chemistry I loved. College chemistry was not until 6 years after I graduated from high school, 7 years after I took my last chemistry class. So I was not you're funny, King Bob. That's a different kind of chemistry. We're just going to keep that one. So treatment of manifestations. All children with GA-1 and feeding difficulties require supervision of a specialist metabolic dietitian with experience in managing diet and GA-1. So I've gone to see I've gone to see a dietitian for my specific issues. And it had to be a dietitian that was trained in my specific issues. Because if I just went to a random dietitian who didn't have specialized training in the area that I needed, it's a completely different thing. So it's a subspecialty. You can't just go to anybody. It's like an occupational therapist. Some are good at cancer treatments. Some are good at neuro. Some are good at cardiac. And if you take a person that has been working in cardiac for 20 years and you put them on a neuro floor, it's a steep learning curve because they just haven't dealt with it in a long time. Doesn't mean that they don't know or they're bad at their job. They're just out of their element. Or you take somebody who's working in geriatrics and you put them with peds. It's going to be a learning curve. So there is subspecialties of these different, even like doctors have, neurologists, cardiologists. Well, dietitians, therapists, PTs, OTs, speech therapists all have their subspecialties and people who specialize in one area or another. So you have to take not only the condition, but all the people who are treating her. And if she's working with a dietitian that might not be specialized in metabolic disorders, it might not be very well, it might not be handled as well as it could be. That's not saying that they're not trying. So routine daily treatment of Glutaric Aciduria Type I, lysine restriction in those ages less than 6 years old, low lysine diet, direct calculation of lysine intake versus total natural protein intake. That is a lot of work. Lysine-free, tryptophan-reduced amino acid formulas, which was what that one video was, to provide adequate supply of essential amino acids with minerals, trace elements, and vitamins. How expensive is that, though? And that's what I haven't been able to find is costs of this stuff. I'm pretty sure because they don't want to be upfront about it because it's fucking expensive. Think about like a protein powder that's grass-fed. You're looking at paying $40, $50 for 1 month. And that's not even a medical intervention. That's just, I go to the gym, I want a high quality protein. If you're trying to get a very specific type of nutrient powder that is low lysine, low tryptophan, that is a very specific and very expensive. Diet must be balanced, decrease lysine intake while maintaining sufficient intake of essential nutrients. Goal lysine intake for term infants, 0 to 6 months, is 100 milligrams per kilogram per day. 6 to 12 months, 90 milligrams per kilogram per day. I'm pretty sure that's not what, that goes over most people's head because you're like, what does that look like? So natural protein intake. After receiving prescribed quantities of lysine-free, tryptophan-free reduced formula, you can't just go and buy that in the store. Like you go to Walmart on the shelf and try to look for, lysine-free, tryptophan-free formula, you're not going to get it. Breastfeeding should be encouraged. Obviously, we know this. If Lynette got custody of her shortly after she was born, she was not breastfed, which could lead to issues because we all know breastfed is best, but fed is best. So we're also not judging that. Yeah, and getting that, oh my God, I didn't even take that into consideration. 2022, I was lucky enough to be able to nurse because there was no formula. Yeah. Imagine that kind of diet while dealing with a kid who's the age where they want to live off fruit snacks and dino nuggets. Yes. That is the other thing. It's expensive. You have to get the child to comply. And as we all know, getting a toddler to comply with anything. Said example right here. I can't even get her, like, usually she wakes up in the morning, she goes and runs and gets one of these and brings it to me like, open it up. Today, I can't get her to eat one to save my life. Yesterday, we lived off peanut butter and jelly. So getting a child to comply. Most children have to take a certain amount of helpful ingredients to sustain. They do not willingly consume this drink. Yes. And that might be where a feeding tube also comes into play. Yes. I think what a lot of people don't understand is disease management. Yes, this is a very good way of putting it. Disease management is not one size fits all. One treatment works for some, but doesn't work for the others. A dino nugget is a chicken nugget that's shaped like a dinosaur. They also make broccoli and cheese dino nuggets, which is a personal favorite of mine. And the only way you can get me to eat broccoli is if you put cheese in it, put it in some breading, and air fry it. So yes, it does. It makes me sad knowing any child has to go through any of this. And this is one of the reasons that I could not work in pediatrics. When I graduated, I did a 6-week clinical rotation in a school system. And I was, nope, I get too personal. However, having all this information is, I should have left flash picture in real time. Yes, they're Bronchiosaurus nuggets. Be careful with how you talk to him. He'll ask you if you like fried tarantula. So, no. So, I'm not going to go into anything over the age of 6 because obviously she's not there. In the Green Giant has broccoli and cheese nuggets that are shaped like dinosaurs. I used to have them in the freezer when baby squids first started eating, because that's one of the only ways that, I'm sorry, I'm a toddler in the sense of fruits and vegetables. Like, the only way you're going to get me to eat vegetables is if you hide it somewhere. I'd like a salad. I like tomatoes, cucumbers. But if you're trying to get me to eat broccoli, you better hide it with some cheese. So, like, they... Whoo, that one went over my head. Dr. Prager's and Dino Nuggets in my freezer, both for me. Yes, I could live my life off of chicken strips and french fries. So we don't know, at the end of the day, getting back to the topic at hand, we don't know everything that this child is dealing with. We don't. Also, to get foods that are low in tryptophan, you have to know what tryptophan is found in. The only real thing that I can tell you that tryptophan is found in is turkey. So it's kind of like it. You also have to think about, like, so you not only have to manage getting her the proper amount of amino acids that aren't lysine, that aren't tryptophan, but you have to think about what everything she can't eat. And if she goes out with friends, and this might be the other thing that is not talked about of why she can't be around others, is people being non-compliant with her diet because they think nothing's wrong with her because she looks fine. So I'm not saying that that's the case with anybody around her, but like when my mom said no sugar and I went to my grandparents' house and they gave me ice cream and fruit snacks, like, they weren't being compliant with my diet, even though I did not have any adverse effects to that. It still was against my mom's wishes. So think about sending your kid to a grandparent's house and your grandparents give them foods that's not only that stuff you didn't approve, but now was actually physically harming them through unintentionally harming them. Like, they didn't mean to give them this. They thought they were just being nice grandparents or nice, cousins or whatever, or a babysitter. And it ends up harming. So being scared to send your kid anywhere, fear is real. And we have to remember, when people get scared, they make poor decisions. whether we like these people or not, whether everything else, I have no idea half the shit that went on over the last 3 years, but like to talk about someone's condition when you don't know what their condition and the extent of it is, in my eyes, is very, very, very wrong. There are so many things that we can go into. Like this is 38 minutes of reading, which I am not reading anything. But like you even have to worry about dental procedures and medical procedures when you have to, So like surveillance, regular evaluations by a metabolic specialist, a metabolic dietitian are appropriate. So measure of growth, and most of the time they do this anyway at well visits, but poor growth, measurements of growth, weight, and head circumference at each visit. You monitor developmental milestones, neuropsychological testing, and age-appropriate standardized assessment batteries. You have to check for movement disorders. Like they might be fine at 2 years old, but 3 years old, all of a sudden they're not fine. So it's a lot of it is a lot of things to pay attention to, and a lot of everyday things that certain people can't do, or they have to be monitored. And when you don't have the means, you don't have the money, you're relying on government assistance, Medicaid doesn't always cover everything. So when the doctor tells you you need this medication that is $6,000 a month, and Medicaid is like, nope, that's too expensive. Yeah. I just heard of a teen who died from anaphylactic shock caused by she ate a cookie made with almond flour her friend made. And see, and things like that. Allergies are, think of this as an allergy that's you can't see. Like you can't go, I'm allergic to, I'm allergic to nuts, or I'm allergic to this. It's like, I'm allergic to protein. It's a little bit harder to get around. So before we judge, we just have to remember what someone might be going through that we don't know. And just because someone looks fine on the outside doesn't mean that the situation, the medications they're taking, any tubes they might have, specialized things they might have to eat, we don't know. So not saying, and once again, I'm going to preface this with not saying I agree with a lot of the things that I've heard. Once again, it's only rumor. I haven't actually seen anything for myself because I don't watch. So you have to be mindful that this is a child that you are talking about. And you might hate that child's guardian, but that is not that child's fault of who they are or who they have to grow up around. That child is innocent. I feel like she needs to be left out of every conversation ever on both sides. And with this, all I want to do is just educate people on the condition itself. Because I'm going to leave with this because I have to get going in a minute because I'm being pulled. You don't know what somebody else is going through. Sitting on the bus next to somebody, you don't know what their life is like. So before you make fun of somebody for a certain situation, do your homework. On that note, I do have to get going because I have to go do mama duties. I have to cook. I also have to... You want that now? I also have to find a workout time in because now I really need it because my agitation. I always need to work out when I'm agitated because I always work out better. Anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. I will be on with Dr. Hines over on his channel, the Ketchup Man. We are going to be reading the 75-page, holy crap, 75-page-ish appeal from David Gingras in the Laura Owens case. Oy, oy, oy. I'm not sure how I feel about that. 75 pages. This is why we're doing it together, because I think I would lose my mind if I have to do it by myself. Anyway, thanks, Moonbump. And Patrick, thank you for the $5 super chat. And also thank you for the 10 gifted memberships from the prior stream. I didn't call you out for that, and I apologize. So I will see you guys on the flip side. I have burgers that I need to cook before they go bad. Y'all have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow over on Heinz's channel. And then I should be back probably Friday. Hose Picker, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I really wanted to keep it non-judgmental of either side, because at the end of the day, everybody who knows me knows I hate everybody. I don't like either side. So I appreciate you sticking around. I know that some of it is very deep, very scientific-y, and very chemistry, and that's not my expertise. However, I love medical stuff. It's where I feel the most comfortable. It's where it's my education. My college degree is in occupational therapy assistant. So it's where I feel the best. And to let's bring this back down to a level where emotions aren't involved. You can hate anybody you want to. I don't care. I'm not your mom. I'm not going to tell you who you can and cannot like. However, I will advise that people be more mindful of what they say when they don't understand completely what they're talking about. On that note, don't forget, take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And I will see you guys later.